Hey everyone, it's Sunflower Spirit here, and I'm here to do another pick a card reading. And today we're going to look at the topic of how you can open yourself up to new love, or for those of you who aren't looking for new love, just how you can open yourself up to love in general, like how you can be open to love. So we have three piles here. We have pile 1 is release, pile 2 is past, pile 3 is freedom. And so go ahead and take a moment to pick your pile, and then we'll get started here. Hey everyone, this is for those of you who chose pile 1 or release. Today we're taking a look at how you can open yourself up to new love or just love in general if that doesn't relate to your situation. We have release. It says you have the ability to give over unwanted energies to the loving forces of the universe. So there's something here they're saying specific to your connection, specific to love, that you may be needing to release. It could be releasing people, it could be releasing ideas, perceptions, it could be releasing expectations, whatever works for you. But we'll pull some tarot and we'll see if there's anything else that comes out here for what it is you may need to release to open yourself up to love or new love. So show me for pile 1, for everyone who chose pile 1, what do they need to do? How can they open themselves up to new love or love, whatever the situation may be for themselves? How can you open yourself up to love or new love? We have the 10 of Pentacles. We have the 8 of Swords. We have the 7 of Wands. How can everyone who chose pile 1 open themselves up to love or new love? We have the 7 of Swords. We have the Page of Cups, and we have the 5 of Swords. How can everyone who chose pile 1 open themselves up to love? We have the Lovers. Beautiful. And we have the Tower and Death. And we have the 3 of Wands on the back of the deck. So how can you open yourself up to love or new love? Excuse me. So for pile 1, what I'm seeing is that you struggle with your decisions in connections and relationships with other people. You struggle with your decision, kind of making that heart space decision. I see a lot of analysis or a lot of cognitive thought process, but I'm seeing that they're telling me that you really need to work on your communication, your decisions, and everything through your heart space. They're also saying that you may have been through a lot. Maybe relationships have been traumatic, or maybe you've kind of gotten into a pattern of having more activating or traumatizing connections because of this inner child wound that you have surrounding emotions and surrounding how your perception of emotions in connection with other people. I see you needing to kind of free yourself from this. That's what this release is about. You need to free yourself from something. And what you need to free yourself from is sort of this harsher energy of I feel like maybe you kind of always expect the worst. You're kind of a person who, in a connection, your go-to is to like expect the worst. And this is a trauma response, by the way. So, and it can be healed. Um, but you ultimately you do want like this family life. You want this stability, you want this loyalty, but I feel like you haven't really that's not what you've experienced with love, unfortunately. That's not what you've experienced in your connections. And so it's kind of like you have this colored perception of these relationships that are always just so much chaos. They cause you so much stress. Like eventually somebody just ends up storming out, leaving, kind of thing. um, and so you're trying to you feel stuck because this is a pattern, a cycle that you've noticed, but you somehow can't seem to break the behavior. um, and so they're saying like you've been through a lot with this, and so you get really in your head. You get in your head about like how to connect with people, because I feel like it doesn't come easily to you because you didn't have like the best guidance. You didn't have the best role models for how you connect to your heart space and come from a place of your heart space within your connections. I feel like maybe you have some trauma where like your connections, you were taught from a very young age that your connections are um used as kind of like a vehicle to get needs met, kind of like a manipulation. Or people were very ethical about how they went about your emotions, like your caregivers were, and you kind of learned from a young age that you really have to kind of defend yourself, be on the defense at all times with people, that people maybe don't have your best interest at heart. And again, trauma response, I have huge like inner child wounds coming out. um, so you get in your head about this, you create struggle, and they're saying that you need to release that there's a transformation that needs to happen, which I do see you working towards that. Like there is energy here that's showing me that you are like working to overcome some of these things. You are working to liberate yourself from this. But I also see, that tendency just to fall back into those patterns. And we don't fall back into those patterns because we're weak. We don't fall back into those patterns because we're bad people. We fall back into those patterns because they're comfortable. And so, it's scary, even though maybe like you learned from a very young age, this is how connections are, this is how relationships are. You're, you still it's still your go to pattern because it's scary to get out of that comfort zone. This is what you know. It takes a lot of courage to get out of that comfort zone. And so they're saying, like, really kind of, you know, plan how you're going to do this. Like, um, write some things down. Write down, like, what are the patterns that happen? What consistently comes up? And this could be activating, by the way. So only do this if you feel like you can. But they're saying, you're not using your mind to the best of your ability. You're not using it for yourself. You're using it against yourself. And so it's time, they're saying it's time to liberate yourself from that. It's time to release this. It's time to release this, you know, feeling like you have to be on defense, feeling like you have to have the upper hand. Um, this is all stemming from this trauma, these childhood wounds pertaining to your emotions and how you connect with other people, and how, you maybe, I'm also seeing too, you might have could have been like a diffuser. Like you could have been like the lightning rod of the family, where there was these implicit expectations that you were supposed to be the person to take care of mom and dads and brothers and sisters, you know, um, emotional stuff that they projected out that they didn't want to deal with because they didn't know how to deal with. You could have been that person too. Oh, the Two of Cups under there. Yeah, they're saying that there's an opportunity here for you to heal this, but you really do need to be deliberate. There's something that you have to be deliberate about, like with your, how you go about this. So let's see what else. I'm gonna pull Wisdom of the Oracle, and we'll see if there's anything else that comes out here. Yeah, there's some sort of, I do see healing energy. I do see like maybe you are in the process of transforming yourself. You're in the process of kind of like gaining your power back. I feel like maybe you could have kind of, there could be an epiphany coming if you haven't already, where you're like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what I need to do to liberate myself from this. And maybe even you have been like a little bit in denial with the Seven of Swords, Five of Swords energy, just because, and I'm not like saying that in a judgmental way, I'm just saying that's how, our ego protects us. That's how our minds are set up to protect us. That's part of that trauma response. So what else for pile one? How could they be more open to love or new love? No place like home. Yeah, so you kind of have, I've talked about this before on this channel, where like, when you do deal with trauma and you have these sort of like trauma responses, um, this comfortability, how um, you know, your view of reality, your perception of reality gets kind of skewed. You don't have an accurate view of what reality is because you never knew that. How can you know that, when you grow up in a situation where, you don't have access to like what actually happens in relationships and how to create healthy connections with other people. So kind of like having this like magical thinking a little bit, and also, like I said, it's comfortable, but also needing to really focus on like, where is your self confidence related to this? How is your self confidence related to this? And houses represent the soul. And I'm also seeing like this yellow light as kind of like the solar plexus chakra shining through. So I'm kind of like, how can you like empower yourself? How can you empower your soul now for, healing? And then we have exchanging gifts on the bottom. So heart chakra. So being open, being receptive. I'm seeing being open, receptive, being open to the mysteries of love and life, being receptive to the mysteries of love and life. So that's very beautiful. And then I'll pull one more card. Um, Hopefully these aren't too long, but you guys can always let me know if they're too long. Try to keep them shorter. But I also want to get you the best information possible. Okay, let's see what else is coming out for pile one, please. For everybody who chose pile one, how can they be more open to love, to new love? Emotional freedom. So this is kind of what I was talking about before. This is about healing. It's about being present in the moment. It's about using your intuition and kind of trying to get yourself to a place where you can feel comfortable with your emotions too. Like I was talking about earlier, how, your emotions, you kind of didn't really have good role models for how to really express yourself within your connections, and so that's kind of why we're seeing a lot of this energy come out now. So that's very beautiful. I hope that was helpful for you guys. I hope that resonated, but if not, you can feel free to check out another pile or another video. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. All right, this is for those of you who chose pile number 2 or this past card. Today we're looking at how you can be more open to love or more open to new love or open to love in general. So we have past. Through the power of love, you release any stagnant situations or energy in order to transform your heart space. Wow, that's beautiful. So I feel like maybe I'm getting root chakra and heart chakra coming out here. So I feel like maybe in the past you might not have had the best connections with others. Maybe you haven't had, relationships that you've been particularly proud of, or you haven't been, things haven't worked out really the way that you had wanted or expected them to. But let's go ahead and pull some tarot. And we'll see if there's anything else that comes out that's relevant. So for everyone who chose pile 2, show me what they need to know to open themselves up to love or new love. What could be helpful for everyone who chose pile 2 for them to open themselves up to love or new love, whatever your situation may be. How can you open yourself up to love or new love? Alright, we have the 7 of Cups. We have the Queen of Cups. We have the 3 of Wands. The last pile had the 3 of Wands too. The 5 of Swords. The last pile also had the 5 of Swords. The 2 of Wands. We have Justice. We have the Ace of Cups. The Wheel of Fortune. Oh, and then we have the King of Pentacles and the Queen of Pentacles just wanted to come out together. Okay, pile 2. And the 3 of Swords. Okay, so how can you open yourself up to love or open yourself up to new love? Okay. So what I'm getting for you is pile 2 is to be like receptive to kind of like the changes, to new changes, be open and receptive to how kind of, you know, we have the past here, then we have the Wheel of Fortune, and the Wheel of Fortune can sometimes speak to karma, and karma just speaks to lessons. Karma is like lessons that we learn. It's like, if you've heard the term karmic relationship, that means that was a connection that was very special because the reason it was special was because it was supposed to be for our higher learning, for our higher purpose, our divine enlightenment, basically. And so that's kind of what I'm getting with this past card here and with the Wheel of Fortune is that you've had, you know, in the past, maybe you've had a lot of connections, a lot of relationships, a lot of lovers who have been there to be your teacher, to kind of show you things that aren't working, to show you who you are, to show you the person that you are that you forgot you were when you came here. And I'm also seeing that, like, you know, there is something about cycles here, like patterns. This is very similar to pile 1 actually, but it's a little bit different. There's some cycles and patterns here where you really need to kind of figure out where your values are. And you could be more open to love by like balancing your head and heart, and not only balancing your head and heart, but like knowing like what you stand for, basically. Like, where are your ethics? What is okay and what's not okay? What is you know, when you can even look around and, you know, like in the news and stuff, like, what do you feel is okay? How is it okay for people to behave? How is it not okay for people to behave? And so kind of like, I feel like maybe really having a good grasp on what your values are in relation to kind of how you've been in the past experiences that you've had. I feel like too, you're also very very like maybe in your head, or kind of go to this place of like getting emotionally overwhelmed or confused. And so they're asking in this time to really like pull it back and take care of your needs first. So when you get emotionally overwhelmed, instead of like being like a people pleaser, approval seeker, go within and say, what do you need? Like, what do I need right now? How can I get my needs met? Which need is not being met right now? Because I'm really emotionally overwhelmed. And this could be like a process. It could take a little while. But ultimately, this is going to do is it's going to transform how you view yourself and how you view yourself in regards to connections. They're also saying you need to rely on your intuition, um, and be deliberate with your intuition about, what your values are, how your values are aligning with who you are. I'm also seeing that like there are opportunities for new love, new connections. There is opportunity for you to have new love, if that's what you were looking for. I am getting kind of like, if you chose this pile, you're kind of a person right now who might be in between those tensions of opposites. And I feel like this puts you in your head a little bit. You don't know what to think about it. You don't know if you should fight, if you should flee. Like, you're kind of like, I don't know. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what I should do. And so it kind of, what it does is it ends up like closing yourself off to these new opportunities, because you're kind of like having this trauma response in your head of like, I'm so overwhelmed and I don't know if I should fight or if I should freeze or if I should fawn. Like, I feel like for you, if you chose this, you're more of a fawner, which means like you're kind of more a little bit of an approval seeker, maybe have a little bit more of a tendency for codependency. It doesn't have to be true for everybody. And if it's not, don't worry about it. But I also feel like when it comes to these decisions, because of your past, because you've had so much, you've had a lot of people in your past who have come to teach you lessons, and those lessons haven't been a bad thing, but they're teaching you about yourself. But I feel like sometimes you get stuck and you think like, I don't know what to do. And sometimes you kind of do this like us versus them thing between taking care of yourself and, allowing yourself to propel forward with the energy that the universe is offering you. Um, and so then you just kind of like don't make a decision. So again, like in that tension between the opposites, kind of, I feel like you get flustered, and you stay there. So they're saying like that's why you really need to have a good, firm, strong understanding of what your values are, because that will help you to kind of like navigate these situations, to be able to like flow with that universal energy when they're like offering you, that they're like, yeah, let's change this up, let's do it. And you're kind of like stuck. You're like, well, I feel tied to both, And I think it's interesting because this card's in between the Queen of Cups and the Wheel of Fortune, so you're almost like making a decision between yourself and your higher self, if that makes sense. But you're not making the decision, because look, he's tied his arm and he's tied his leg to either one of those poles, and he's getting information. He's getting universal information. The bird came to talk to him, but he's not really like acting upon it or moving upon it. So kind of like needing to take yourself out of that like trauma response, which is easier said than done, because a lot of times these trauma responses, we don't like realize that they're conscious. And so that's why it's so important to kind of like expand that awareness surrounding some of these patterns that you have. I also see that you do have opportunity for new beginning. But with this King of Queen of Pentacles here, there's something about like your stability and your loyalty. Maybe you are in a connection already, but maybe you're like, maybe this connection isn't been working for you. Maybe there's a lot of harsh truth, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of pain, anger, shame, rage. And so maybe you are kind of like wondering if there is something else there for you. They're saying that there is something for you, but that's not for everybody. I mean, this also shows me that like maybe you have kind of like overcome a lot of this stuff, and maybe what you really want now is to have like an ethical relationship with your partner. And so that takes a lot of like planning, a lot of goals, a lot of like deliberateness on your part to do that. But I do feel like you've had a lot of heartbreak in the past. I feel like there's been a lot of, we have past, like past, all this stuff coming up about the past. So something about the past is affecting your relationship now if you are in a relationship. And that's why they're saying you need to be ethical. Where are your values? What is it that you want? How can you make these values, become a reality? How can you live them so that your partner can live with them too? So let's see. I'm going to pull a Wisdom of the Oracle card and see if there's anything else that comes out. We have Unfinished Symphony. Okay, yeah, so maybe like they are saying there is like a new opportunity for you here, but there's also something again from your past that's coming through that's like, you need to heal something from this past. There's something here. Maybe if this is a connection, if you are in a connection like that right now, there's something where you still need to learn something. There's an opportunity for new beginning, new growth, new development with this, but you are still kind of like in this energy where you're kind of like, well, do I take care of myself or do I take care of the connection and move forward with the transformation? It doesn't have to be one or the other. You can do both. In fact, it's better if you focus on yourself right now, if you focus on your healing and how you can transform the situation. 9 times out of 10, it'll transform. However, there are connections where this doesn't work, and that's only in those very toxic connections. So you have to kind of like use your discernment here. We have flexible on the back of the deck. So yeah, also about being flexible, about being able to adapt to the situation, adapt to your environment. And that's kind of like what this Wheel of Fortune is about too. It's like, they're offering you this, but ultimately you have to be the one to make those changes with this Queen of Cups up here. So let's see what else we have. What else do we have? Sexual freedom. So yeah, there's something about like, again, with the past, I'm getting past energy here, where you have had, to really find yourself through your connections, and you've had the opportunity to find yourself through these connections. However, like, you need to kind of like liberate yourself. This is kind of similar to pile 1, actually, where you need to be able to like figure out, what do you believe? Be flexible with your mind, with your beliefs. Where are your values? What isn't working? How can you give yourself what you need so that you can get that need met, like, in your connections with other people? And we have compatibility. Yeah, how can you be the person that you need to be to attract what you want into your life? So that's very beautiful. I hope that was helpful for you, pile 2. I hope it resonated. But if not, you can feel free to check out another pile or another video, and I appreciate you guys so much for stopping by. All right, this is for those of you who chose the 3rd pile or freedom, and today we're taking a look at how you can be more open to love, how you can be open to new love. We have freedom here, which says you are releasing any self-imposed restrictions or perceived limitations through the loving energy of openness. Wow. So kind of like liberating yourself. I do have like root chakra and heart chakra coming out, similar to the last pile. And what this is telling me is that like, your freedom is somehow related to your freedom is related to how you feel you're getting your basic needs met, how stable and secure you feel. And it's also related to, your ability to like open your heart. Maybe due to some past trauma wounds or things that may have caused you to close your heart. Also getting creativity. Something about creativity is coming out, your sacral chakra. But let's see what the tarot says. What does everyone who chose pile 3 need to know to open themselves to love or new love? What does pile 3 need to know to open themselves to love or new love? We have the 2 of Swords. We have the Queen of Pentacles. The last pile got the Queen of Pentacles. We have Seven of Swords. Last pile got Seven of Swords. We have the Chariot. We have Eight of Pentacles and Page of Swords. We have the Hermit. Sorry about that glare. We have the Ace of Wands. And we have the Ten of Cups. And then on the back of the deck, we have the Six of Swords. Okay. So what do you need to know? How can you open yourself up to love or to new love? Pile 3. So I feel like if you chose this pile, you could be like a healer. And a healer is somebody who kind of like does their own inner work first, right? And then they might reach out to others, but they don't necessarily have to. But it's somebody who kind of like figures out how to navigate some of these like harsher truths, harsher realities, and somebody who does a lot of like soul searching on how they can be better. So I feel like, you know, you with freedom here, release yourself from self-imposed restrictions. So I feel like as a healer, sometimes maybe you might have the tendency to be, to kind of like limit yourself. But let's see what else we have. So I feel like decisions might be harder for you in connections. Decisions are harder for you because you doubt yourself. Maybe you doubt others. Maybe you have like an inner critic. Like this is a inner child wound. Maybe your inner critic is like very overly active. And you are stable, but you get in your head about like not being stable. Because sometimes you'll like hesitate to make decisions regarding your healing, regarding your journey, your growth, and things that might be good for you because you can't see all the information. And a lot of times we won't be able to see everything before we make decisions. But I do feel like you spend a lot of time like trying to figure out, is this me or is this other people? And how do I get where I want to go? How do I give myself that freedom? How do I liberate myself to get myself to a place where I can heal and I can make these decisions? I feel like decisions, this was similar to pile 1 a little bit. It's almost similar to pile 2 also. But I feel like for you, the decisions, you get in your head about the decisions and then you like go within and you're like, is this me or is this other people? Or like, what is this? This is so confusing. I also feel like you spend a lot of time and energy working on figuring out what it is you want in life, figuring out where you need to go, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I feel like you do kind of like enjoy your freedom. And you're very like self-starter energy. I'm getting like Aquarius energy. I don't have an Aquarius card here, but just intuitively you're coming across as kind of like an Aquarius type, you know, which is kind of that energy of like self-sufficiency. They don't mind being individualistic, very like humanitarian a lot of times. Doesn't have to be. But that's kind of the energy that I'm getting if you chose this pile. And you do have an inner child wound. And this inner child wound has to deal with your family life, how you grew up, the kind of love that you got from your parents, caregivers, family, etc. when you were small. So you have an inner child wound about like self-expression with this. how you express yourself in connection, how you express yourself in family situations. And so I feel like this kind of causes some blockages for you because you doubt yourself. Like I said before, you have a tendency to doubt yourself. You don't make decisions because you get paralyzed by trying to make decisions. And so that's kind of something that you struggle with here. So we also have, you are very like, uh, inspired, very inspired person. You really are inspired by like having a good, happy family, having things be emotionally stable, and you work really hard on yourself to try to like create this within your family situation or love situation. But I feel like again these thoughts kind of like get in the way. This is similar. I think this was pile 2 who had something a little bit similar like this. And so they're asking for you to like move away from some of those things, to liberate yourself, to free yourself from some of those ideas and thoughts and perceptions that aren't necessarily serving you. Like, I feel like there are things that need to be a certain way. That's the self imposed restrictions or the self imposed limitations. You feel like things need to be a certain way to get a certain outcome. And you do this in relationships, and I feel like it causes a lot of um, I feel like you kind of let yourself down a lot of times in relationships and you take that on. You take it all on too. You have a tendency to kind of like take responsibility for the entire connection instead of allowing everyone to kind of have accountability for the connection. But I feel like you work really hard. You could also use work as kind of like a distraction from not having the connections that you want, not having the openness to connection that you want. You have like a lot of great ideas. You're somebody who really knows how to put your ideas to a place where you can get financial abundance from them. You kind of have that like witchy energy where you work really hard and you know how to like behave to get the things that you want. And not only that, you have the passion, you have the inspiration to do these things. And so sometimes you use that as a means of like distraction, I feel like. But there is something you need to move away from, and I feel like it's this kind of like 2 of Swords, 7 of Swords energy where like, how the Queen of Pentacles in between, she is stable, but she doesn't think she is because she has a 2 of Swords and 7 of Swords. She knows she needs to make these decisions, but she can't get herself, to make these decisions because of this inner child wound with this Page of Swords here. About like, I feel like maybe you might have a perfectionist tendency too if you chose this pile. Um, so needing to kind of like take a look at that. Let's see what else we have. Let's see if there's anything else. How could pile 3 be open to love or new love? By the book. Yeah, again, perfectionist coming out. That's so weird that I said that. That came out. Um, so a little bit of perfectionism, needing to rely on your inner wisdom. You're very smart. You are a very intelligent individual with this by the book and this 7 of Swords, Page of Swords energy. And so needing to really like, maybe sometimes it doesn't have to be by the book, maybe there are times when you can kind of like release some of that. And I feel like you're learning a lot, though. I feel like you're learning, there's a lot that you're learning here. We have chaos and conflict on the back. So this tells me that you, yeah, you're different. I'm almost getting like neurodivergent autism, something. I mean, take it as it resonates. But I feel like maybe that part of you gets um, makes your relationships a little bit harder. And so that's why you focus on this work because you kind of have trouble knowing how to relate with others. So you try to go inward with this Hermit card and you try to relate with yourself because you're kind of like, I don't know how to relate with other people. And so that's kind of why you're in this Chariot energy where you try to get your own needs met, but you struggle because I feel like ultimately you struggle in your head because you want this 10 of Cups and you feel like it's almost nearly impossible to get that. So let's pull one more card. and see if there's anything else that comes out. Anything else for pile 3? How could they be open to love, open to new love? The silver waterfall. So being vulnerable with your growth and your transformation, being able to align yourself with your values, being able to kind of, I feel like maybe too, if you chose this pile, you could be like a late bloomer. So maybe like you don't, and it's called asynchronous development. Like if it is autism or neurodivergence or something like that, the clinical term is asynchronous development. And basically, that's just a fancy word that means like, you know, when they do these tests on children and they look at like a 10-year-old, and a 10-year-old, they have all this data that says, you know, as a 10-year-old, this person should be at this level socially, at this level mathematically, at this level with their English and their language, and but asynchronous development happens a lot in neurodivergent kiddos or kiddos who have experienced trauma. And what that means is that like they might be at a 10-year-old level at one of those things. They might, when they're 10, they might be at that 10-year-old level. They might do language at a 10-year-old level, but they don't do social stuff at a 10-year-old level. And that's simply because like neurodivergent children and people who have trauma, you know, ACEs or adverse childhood experiences, they have a lot more going on, a lot more to process with this chaos and conflict. Um, so I feel like that's kind of what I'm seeing, like, you know, that's what I mean, like a late bloomer. You might have some of that like asynchronous development going on. Um, we have the Rainbow Reviver. So I feel like really needing to focus on, you know, where your values are. How can you align yourself? I always see these as like the chakra colors. So like how can you get your chakras in alignment with each other so that you can be successful with this vulnerability, with this transformation, you know, with learning these difficult things in connection with others. So I hope that was helpful for you. I hope that resonated. If not, you can feel free to check out another pile or another video. And I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for stopping by today.